I'ma say what I feel, and I promise to keep it real. Welcome to the Rant Room. So you wanna be a writer? Well, you gotta be a writer till your fears are diminishing, the doubts are behind you. It's hard to grind in the business, got me stressed in the Rant Room. We let that shit up off our chest. You never have to guess when you're listening to Hilliard. He gon' bring more game than a shark playing billiards. It's all about the craft of screenwriting. It's exciting when you turn an outline into something enlightening. Your pen and words are like bullets in a gun. Write what you feel, say what you want. Welcome to the Rant Room. Oh yeah.
What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Hilliard Guess, and you guys are tuned in for the Screenwriters Rant Room, where we keep it real, we keep it opinionated, we keep it what, everybody?
Game all day.
Y'all know the goddamn thing. They're trying to let us do it. Like we the Earth, Wind, and Fire, y'all watching the show. I know what y'all doing. On this show, we discuss entertainment, TV, film, music, culture, but our focus is always screenwriting, stories, craft, and shit like that. Now, you guys see, you know how it go. You guys see we have a whole panel of writers up here. Some of my close friends up here, people that I love, super talented. To my right, my girl, Tash Gray. Let's hear it for her.
Yeah.
Executive producer herself, killing the game out there. All kind of shows. My man, to the right, Derrick, y'all. Writer, director, producer himself. Oh, Tash, the director too. I always forget. Because you just always working on a show like you got a job or something. You know what I'm saying? And then we got my man, Saeed Crumpler, in the building. I call him Mr. Development. He don't know it yet, you know. Every time I turn
I'll take
around,
that.
he's developing a new show.
I'll take that.
Exactly. I think we're going to have to use this mic.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we can do them both.
So we're going to start right here for the kids.
One time for your mom.
For the kids. Check it out. Let's go down the line. I want to start here. What was your first thing that happened for you? I say that because everybody thinks you get a big break. There's not a big break. There's a bunch of little ones before some shit happens. What was that first thing that kind of gave you a little bit of, I think I could do this?
My first big break was birth. I was born to be great. No, I'm kidding.
That's a break.
Came through the placenta. So my first big thing. Oh, I won like 3 writing competitions like the same month. And I was very excited. Didn't know what that meant, but it meant the opportunity to meet people and for people to actually go, oh, well, maybe she can write. So that I count that as my first big break because I realized other people were also, seeing that I could do something. So I'm gonna say winning 3 competitions the same month.
Okay. What about you, Chris?
Oh man, that's a tough one. But I think it was there was a movie, a short film that my brother and I co-wrote and co-directed that was playing at a competition at Sundance, and so we went up to Utah, to Park City, to represent the film, and a whole bunch of people saw it because it was. I remember one of the coolest things was it was a comedy, it was this barbershop comedy thing. I remember Robert Redford was there in the audience, and he was like laughing at our movie, and I was like, "That's dope." And then a bunch of people were there, and they were asking, "Oh, so you from LA?" Or they kept saying like, "If you ever come to LA, you should look us up. Here's our cars, blah blah blah." And we were like, "No, we live in LA." And they were like, "Oh, then you have to come meet us. You have to come meet us." So that sort of was like just an opportunity to speak, to meet people from that. So.
Man, damn, it feels like so many small ones. But I'll say the first thing was getting into this. Well, I got rejected from UCLA grad school, NYU and USC, but UCLA hit me back and was like, "We like your writing. We got an online TV writing class." Later, I realized Stephen Canals, who created Pose, did the same program. So I entered that program, and I would do that program at night after work on Skype. It was before Zoom. But that's when I was like, oh, shit. that was my first like entry into it, like a entry point.
While you have the mic, I want to tell everybody about how you used your spec, put it online,
Yeah.
and how that transitioned for you for the kids out there.
Yeah, during COVID, in that UCLA program I wrote in Atlanta,
Right.
spec called Spider Chicken, and and it did really well for me. And actually, my teacher at UCLA was like, you need to meet these producers. I met these producers. I ended up getting hired to write a biopic,
Right.
and I was like, damn, okay, this is off of a spec. I ain't, of an existing television show. And so screenwriting Twitter was a poppin' during COVID.
Yeah.
Is that where we
And,
met? Did we meet?
Yeah, we met. I met a lot of cool Ben Watkins. I met a lot of cool showrunners and people on screenwriting Twitter. And I one day I just was like, man, I'm gonna release pages from this spec. And it kind of went like viral on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I had released my Atlanta Spider Chicken spec online, and I ended up getting showrunners DMing me to read it and all kind of stuff. So yeah, write a spec.
So what you see how there's no rules to breaking in. That's why I wanted them to say that. It's actually something I know we hate to talk about. It's like, well, oh, I don't want to tell people how I broke in. I don't want to tell whatever. But the reason is I want people to see that your way in isn't their way in, and et cetera, et cetera. So let me go to this. What was it for you? Because we've known each other for a long time, Tash. Before you ever was writing on TV, from what I remember. And to what? But Tash and I used to talk. This is just some sidebar stuff. So y'all gonna come into some of our own conversations just so you get to know us a little bit. But we used to talk way back in the day, and you were always trying to get me to go to TV. And I was always like, oh, I'm out here making these little movies and, doing all this stuff. And then I would watch you just go bing, 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 bing. I'm like, wait a minute. I need to be over there at the TV. Where'd you get a new car from? What you did? You rolling over there. I see you. I got the videotape. But you are one of the reasons why I moved into TV. You don't know that. Yeah, for sure. I've been writing some stuff, but I never was like pushing. And mainly it was because the writer's strike of 2007, 2008, and Chris and I were out there back then at Paramount doing all that shit. And it was such a time when, like, it felt like now, like we're in that contraction. It felt like that. Like I always say, and Chris, I always say this, I feel like we're in a little bit of a cycle. The difference is we're usually in a cycle where it comes back to where it used to be. Now we're in a cycle where motherfuckers don't know what it is, right? So it's a scary time, right? Yeah. With that, how did you know? So you were talking about Saeed. Was that the script that got you staffed?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the script that you wrote that got you staffed? And the reason I ask this, I'll just preface this. Everybody that I know, for the most part, wrote a script that from the heart that everybody's like, why are you writing that? And that's the one that usually breaks you in. So that's why I'm always curious about this question. I'll start with you, Tash.
So my first staffing was on a show called Dog with the Blog. Mm-hmm. I made a dog talk. So. But that was by way of the ABC writing program. So that was a spec. It was probably Big Bang Theory or something like that, okay. 30 Rock. I also did NBC's Writers on the Verge. Right. So I went, program slutting around until I got on a show. And then I'm also a drama writer. So after doing like 2 or 3 comedies, I decided I wanted a little bit more options. And so I started to write for drama. And then I wrote a spec, an original, and that got me read by John Singleton, who would then later be my mentor, and got me on Snowfall and Rebel and anything else. And yeah, that was a labor of love. Right. It's called Chocolate City. It still gets me so many meetings.
Wait. So you have a script that you wrote a long time ago
Yep.
that still works today.
That still works. And I've written
I do
other
too.
things.
Yeah, for sure.
That's, you know, I probably have maybe 10,
Right.
you know, pilots under my belt at this point, not including the ones I sold. The ones that didn't go, that were sold but didn't get to air, I still use those as samples.
Absolutely.
Just because I wrote it. And so I have two, one that was a spec and then one that was an original pilot. And I think everybody should, you know, specs aren't that popular anymore, but I really feel like everyone should try their hands at them. It is something that it's a skill that if you want to write for TV, you have to be able to write in someone else's voice while still infusing your own original perspective. And that is a skill that once you master it, you'll continue to staff. Yep. And it's just something that I tell people to do, like, don't ignore specs. I know everybody wants to read an original, but as someone who, you know, has been a showrunner, had my own room, I will say sometimes I wonder how long you were working on that original. And I'm like, is this like 20 drafts? It's real good though.
Right.
But how long did it take you? And are you going to be able to emulate my voice? And there was
in the week or 14 days or whatever
in
it
the
is,
time
right?
frame that I need you to do it. And there was one writer who I didn't staff. I asked her if she had a spec because I wasn't sure that she can make the transition. She had a spec, and I knew, I was like, oh, this isn't going to work because the spec was not in the voice of the show. And I was like, yeah, she's a good writer, but she might be a screenwriter. She might not be a TV writer. That's so important. It's so many time limits and constraints that it's just a skill you have to have. Brother man.
Let's see.
Now, you also went from film to TV.
Yeah.
So talk
I did.
about that.
So, yeah, I mean, well, for me, it's kind of a different story because I used to write with a partner for a long time. And then I stopped, and then I had to sort of like create material that was just mine and with my voice and how to do that. But I wrote a script that was about my father. And
Can you project a little bit?
oh yeah, so I wrote the script that was about my father, and it was about just his life and his career. He used to import coffee, and so people were like, I don't know that story. I don't know anything about this, and so I wrote that, and people read it, and it got me meetings. But it's not sort of how I got staffed the first time. The story I have getting staffed is sort of boggles my mind too. I met with this guy Alex Kurtzman, who was behind like Fringe, and he was the whole Star Trek thing. And I met with him and his partner named Jenny Lumet, and she's the daughter of that famous director named Sidney Lumet, and the granddaughter of Lena Horne. And at the time, they were trying to do this miniseries about Lena Horne, and I really, really wanted to write on that. And so that's why I was meeting with them. But we were just talking, and they were like, so tell me about yourself, which is this question you always get. And I started like pitching something about my life, and they were like, oh, is there a pilot about that? And I was like, yeah, I do. And they were like, send it to us right now. This was like over Zoom. I was like, you mean over the meet? Like, no, just send it. Here's our email, and just send it to us now. So I stopped in the middle of the Zoom, sent it to them, and and then like a couple weeks later, they wanted to meet with me, and then they said, oh, so there was a show, it was a Star Trek show that, so meet the showrunners for that. So I went to that meeting and was like trying to prep for all the prep you got to do for that meeting, and then the very first line that the showrunner said to me was, "I'm sorry, I haven't read your script."
That happens.
But I heard from Alex that he really likes you and that I should meet with you. So let's just talk. And we were talking, and I was totally thrown on what to do at the point. But then I was like, okay, wait a minute. I have to like show him who I am as a person in the room so he knows what he's going to get. And so I said, man, I got a bone to pick with you. And he was like, you don't even know me. And I said, yeah, man, so now there's the soundtrack to your show called 12 Monkeys. And so it used to be on Spotify, and it's not. So what's with the license on that? And he just started laughing his ass off, and he was like, my show? I was like, yeah, your show. I write to it all the time. it helps me when I get through it. And he was like, I'm gonna get you some CDs. I have some CDs. And then and he said, look, and we talked for another 20 minutes. And then he was like, look, I'll know what I need in about a week or 10 days. And I was like, cool. And then 10 days went by. And then I was like, oh, he meant 10 business days. He didn't mean 10 calendar days.
That's true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure, man, for sure. And so, I was like, what's going on? And I'm like, we cut this out. And then I'll never forget what happened. He, I sort of I became I followed him on Twitter, and then it was like a Thursday night. He sent me a DM on Twitter, 10 o'clock or something like that. And he was like, who are your reps? And I told him, and that was it. And then the next morning, I get a call from my managers, and they're like, hey, there's an offer for you to start a Star Trek on Monday. And I was like,
That's how it be.
I was like, all right, well, make it happen because I'm not busy. And then that's what happened.
I'm available.
Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead.
For me, I was in the Nickelodeon screenwriting program, so I ended up getting staffed on a Showtime comedy called Flatbush Misdemeanors.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening though was I was already watching season 1. I was watching that and Southside. Those was the 2 shows I was dying laughing at the time. And the woman who runs the program, Kate, she was like, we're putting you up for this show. I don't know if you ever heard of it, Flatbush Misdemeanors. I was like, what? I was like, hell yeah, I heard of this show. So I didn't need to watch no episodes or nothing.
Yeah.
How usually you got to go cram. Mm-hmm. I got a whole nother story about that. I was supposed to be on Charmed. And I had to watch 30 episodes of Charmed in 2 days.
Yeah.
It didn't get hired, but I still watched 30 episodes.
I've done that.
But no, I definitely, when I got in the room, I met the showrunner, and he had read my pilot, and he was like, he kept it simple. He was like, you in here for the jokes. And that was cool, because I was like, okay, that took some of the pressure off. And then I met with him, and then they was like, all right, I need you to meet the 2 stars of the show. And I met the 2 stars, I had them laughing. And then the interesting thing about good timing was the main character in the show was in a fellowship, an art fellowship that season. I was in a fellowship. So a lot of my life I lent to that, and I was just landing as soon as I got in the room. So that's how I got on that show. That was my first show.
That's dope.
Don't break it.
Y'all hear that? There's some game in there. So I'll tell you guys how I got on Deadly Class, which I've talked about many times. So it goes like this. So I had one of the showrunners on my show, who's an old friend of mine, and we were sitting talking. He was talking about how they produced the pilot and all this other stuff. And when we turned off the tape, and Chris knows this, I had decided that year that I was gonna start asking my friends for stuff that I never did before. We talk about this all the time, Carlton. And he was my first try. So, but there's a rule to this, and we all know this. If you don't bring value, this is a waste of time to bring up. Now, so he tells me all about what happened, blah, blah, blah. I finished the tape, and I said, he says, oh, I didn't want to say it on the air, but the show got picked up. I said, what? I said, well, fuck it. You know you need to hire me, right? And he was like, what? I said, but let me explain to you why. So I start my little spiel, which is, I'm from San Francisco. I'm one of those original rude boys. I drive scooters, blah, blah. I'm the dude in the 80s in the book. I was at the Well Building. I was at Fishbone concerts. I was blah, blah, blah. I rode my scooter here tonight. Y'all saw me, right?
I saw it.
Don't be playing, Jack. Don't be playing. And so, you know what I'm saying? I'm old school. Now, so I sold myself on my why he should have me in the room, and to what they were just saying, what is the superpower you bring to the room? So I left this in his head. So when he left, at one point I turned, and you guys know who've been in my office, there's a photo of me on one of my scooters on the cover of the LA Times in my full 60s outfit, like this. And I was like, that's me. On the scooter I had in the 80s, right? And I said, you ain't gonna find nobody else in this town that's like that. And he left. 5 minutes later, he called me. Hey, Hill, I was thinking, yeah, man, we need to have you on the show, right? So this is gonna tie into one little thing. I just talked about this on my last episode, one of my showrunners. and I was talking about imposter syndrome. And I was talking about how there was a time when I was in the room, we're just a few weeks into the room, and we've all been there, and two of the upper levels were just talking about philosophy and sometimes you're not even on the board, you're just talking, right? And I started going like this in the room. I was shrinking. I was like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And I was like, I need to busy myself. So I reached down, we have this master comic book that's like this thick. Every book is in there. And I just start folding through, pretending like I'm doing something, and I open up on a photo of one of the covers of a magazine, of the comic for a character we're talking about introducing in season 2. And it's of this guy named Maud Stephen. And I was like, and he's there with his 60s outfit and his scooter, and I'm like, that's me, bitch. And I was like, oh, that's why I'm here. And I look around the room, I'm like, not even the guy who wrote it was there. I was there in the 80s at the blah, blah, blah. And I went, oh, y'all could talk about this all day. And I realized, but see, that's because nobody told me what my superpower was. I had to figure it out, right? How do you figure out where your superpower is in your room, if you don't mind? Do they tell you sometime, or do you figure it out?
I think it's both ways.
Okay.
One, you know something you're good at, and then you can get into a room and you think, I'm really good at this,
right.
And then nobody needs it, and you're like, uh-oh. And so you have to, in that way, you have to figure it out, and then they'll tell you what
right.
that is. I was in comedy, you know, when you're lower level, you're writing jokes, so that's what they really want you for, because you haven't been, when you're upper level, you've been pitching jokes for 10 years and you're just like, ugh. So you need the fresh voice.
Right.
In drama, I went to UCLA. I started off as an engineering major, math, whatever. Math is another language for me. You know, a lot of people who, you know, understand that it's a whole nother language. And it became a language that I can translate as a storyteller. And so while I was in my second drama, I realized I was using math to fix story problems. And a good friend of mine, Jamie, was like, that's a skill. I was like, what?
Yeah.
He was like, you just be up here beautiful minding this shit. And I was like, oh. And so someone told me about that skill,
right.
like that I can look at the story and step back and go, there's our problem. This needs to go here. And because it was math for me, so that was a time that somebody actually brought it to my attention, and then I started to like lean into it, and now I own it. I know that when it comes to story, like, we can have a story off any day. What you got on the table. I just know that that's something I'm really good at, and so I own it, and that, you know, I put a little audacity behind it. But I think everyone has more than one superpower, and you just have to be able to access it depending on whatever show you're on. And you want to ask the people that you work with. Like, I always say network across. People should be reading you, and they should be able to say, oh, you are a great, like, your act outs are just solid. And then you're like, oh. And then you start to own it, and you start to see it. So I think you need to find a little bit of both. Somebody is going to tell you, as well as you're going to see the things that you really enjoy, that you're really honing, and go, that's my other superpower. But always have more than one, and always be able to own them and name them.
Before you move, for your room, when you was running your own room, did you make sure to tell the writers why they were there, or what or where you needed them, or where their strength was?
Yes, I gave them all, like, I think around week 2, when we were like having to do a pitch out, I knew what everybody I felt like I was going to lean on them for, and we just had that conversation. You know, I remember telling a staff writer who was just like blown away. I was like, you're so good at finding perspective and changing voices, because sometimes when you're starting a show, the characters start to blend, and you're like, wait a minute. Like, you ever type a name and a wrong name appears and you don't even realize it? That's a problem. Because you got to page 12 and you're like, what? And I noticed that she had a really good sense of perspective, like the POV of characters, and I was like, you're really good at that. So I'm going to need you to always be on that. Be on, like, does this person sound like this person? And because it was a sports show, I didn't want to be, like right in a realm of stereotypes, like they all bros or something like that. That was going to be boring and just not good. So she was really good at that, and it was something that she learned in that moment.
Okay.
So yeah, I think people will tell you, and I did tell mine.
Superpower, man. Yeah, I guess it's different for every show. I mean, I sort of, I hate this.
What did you do on Star Trek?
Well, so Star Trek was different. Like, so Star Trek was really crazy because this is sort of the imposter syndrome thing in a certain way. And this is something I didn't know until like 2 months into the room. We started the second season. Well, like I started on the second season of Star Trek Picard. And what I didn't know until like 2 months in was they had did another iteration of that season. They did 7 episodes. COVID happened. They shut everything down. The studio like read all the scripts and was like, start over. And a couple writers were like left because they, for reasons, just left. And so I started, and I didn't know there was another, like version of the thing because they didn't share it with the new people. Right. There was like 3 of us who knew. It was a room of 8. And I was sort of stunned because there was 2 other writers who were at my level, and they were so good at the whole game. And I was like, I'm like, I don't know how is that possible? Then I realized, I was like, oh, you had, like 15 weeks to get your sea legs up. And know how to do it. Right. And I was like, oh, now I know how the culture of the room and how to pitch and everything like that, and what the showrunner wants you to pitch to that method. I mean, in Star Trek, Star Trek, it's sort of like they would ask me to, hey, can you go watch like these 10 episodes from this series and this series and this series and come back with something that we haven't seen yet or that we should bring back. Right. And I was like, man, it was so much of trying to like catch up of what, because that's the problem with doing a show that had been on for 60 years. There's all this lore you got to go into. So there's that. But coming from writing features, I used to sort of have a different like way of looking at how the episodes sort of broke down. I could kind of see things at that larger perspective, not the granular level, and I could kind of pitch on that. And it would always be these things where we get to the certain point, and I would sort of say, well, what if we did this instead? And it was, I sometimes I get mad because there's someone who sort of blows up an episode for some reason.
Not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. But what happens is when you get stuck with something, you might have to, know. And the funny thing is, not the funny thing, but it's like that same unit we worked on this Netflix show that's not out yet, and the same thing happened. We were like, and I came in late in the game because they did a mini room to get it going, and then we came in, and I remember in episode 4 something was happening at the end, and I was like, what if we did this instead? And they were like, oh, that gives us our trajectory for the next 4 episodes. But now we got to rewrite the previous 4 episodes to make that one moment at the end happen. And it was like,
but it's worth it.
It was worth it because because then it allowed the end to work in a different way that that Netflix loved. Mm-hmm. And so it's like that. I mean, like that's something. But at the same time, like I was going to say earlier, it's like I'm sort of like a polymath, so I just pick up information like all over the place. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm like, I sort of remember it, and I sort of have people say I have like a photographic memory, particularly of films and movies that I see. So a lot of times
he's a cinephile too. So
I remember we were on The Equalizer, and I remember one of the co-EPs, she pitched this episode out, and it was kind of cool, and I was like, oh, that reminds me of this movie from like 1962 called Bunny Lake is Missing. And they were looking at me like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, I just watched it like 2 months ago. You just watched it. I was like, that's your episode. Like the story's the same, but it's just, we just got to make it fit for, like for the Equalizer's formula. And she went home and watched it, and she was like, how did you know? How did you have that? And I was like, I just saw the pattern of what you were saying, and it just kind of clicked that I just seen that. So that's helpful because so many like stories are like the same story plot-wise, but they kind of function differently because the characters are going to respond differently. And so for me, because I've seen so many movies, I can just go, oh, it's this story. It's from here. And sometimes it's annoying to people because they're like, how do you know? And I'm like, well, you watch movies? We've all watched movies, but not that one from the 50s or whatever, from the 20s or this foreign film. But I also do something interesting that, like, there's a good friend of mine, he's a movie that came out yesterday called They Will Kill You. And the thing that he always does when we sit down, he's like, okay, so what are you watching? What are you watching? Because I tend to watch stuff that's so obscure that no one's watching, that I'm always like, oh, there was this really cool show that, and then he's like, I've never heard of this. I was like, just watch it, it'll blow you away. And then he'll call me, he goes, how'd you even find out about that? I was like, I don't know.
Criterion Channel,
or I'm leafing through, or as an actor that I liked, and then I'm looking at his filmography, and I was like, oh, this other show or movie sounds cool. Let me just watch that and see. And it just like I don't know, and that stuff just stays with me. So and it just helps for when I'm doing anything.
I'll go fast, but I
take your time.
I also feel like you should be able to do a lot of things though, because even when I was in Flatbush, even though he said I was there for the jokes, I started doing research on other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that I could bring other stories. Like, they had a whole addiction line, and so I was like looking up people with like, what are the stages of addiction, and like all this shit outside of the room. You know what I'm saying? That I could bring in, because I knew that wasn't my superpower per se. You know what I'm saying? And I was just recently in a mini room for a drama, and it had a lot of law shit. I don't know law shit. You know what I'm saying? But I have life experience. Yep. So you do have that moment where you're like, man, there's a lot of people saying law shit. And you like, bruh, you start backing back. But then you'll be like, oh, well, here goes some life shit. And you realize like, oh, and then that shit hit. And you be like, oh, I got life experience. Because at the end of the day, these are characters that need, and what showrunners need is like people that done been through shit. You know what I'm saying? And they need, and one thing I learned from working on Flatbush is I learned how to, because each room has like kind of a way to pitch, and you gotta just kind of like fill it out. It's like dancing. And I always learned like to say, oh, I know, like there was somebody I knew who did this, or what is a world where if like he did this because I know I did this. Always starting with like having your pitch be from like something from real life instead of just throwing some shit out. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I always would make my pitches personal, and and research. Like even in Flatbush, it was in New York, and I've been to New York 3 times, but the Flatbush in Brooklyn is very specific, from the slang to everything. And part of the show that people love is how specific it was. You know what I mean? Like, so I would be up at night watching, even before I started the room, I would watch YouTube videos of like Flatbush and just see people with vlogs in Flatbush talking slang and shit. And so I could pick it up, and I used to write it all down. And that's where specs come in. Because when I wrote Atlanta, I had to really sit down and be like, all right, what are the words Earn says? What are the words Paperboy says? And then, Darius always says wow shit. So like, the reason why it's even called Spider Chicken is because they go eat chicken and at this restaurant, and Darius has this whole thing about, you know, they have chicken with 5 legs and they call it spider chicken. So like, you know what I'm saying? So, but what I'm saying is like, you have to really understand each character, and they're different in the language. Yep. So that's why I think writing a spec first, like I wrote Atlanta and an Insecure, because when you're on these shows, you're writing in the voice of the characters. You know what I'm saying? You're not writing like your voice. You're bringing your stories, but you got to write the voice of the character.
Yeah. Some game, right? Whoops, sorry. So all of us up here have been in development. We call it development hell. I was in it for like 6 years. It's crazy, which is also another reason why I don't have 200 network shows on my thing, because I got stuck there. Let me just ask you guys, Saeed, I know you deep in it. I know you and I, we have a little something that we do. Let me ask you guys about development. How do these writers, how do you even get a development, position, job, whatever, opportunity? And how do you guys even get a job and an opportunity like that? And how do you deal with all of the hell we have to go through in development? Because you've sold and, been through just curious.
So I call it development purgatory. Because you could go to hell, you could go to heaven.
Right.
The show could get made.
Yeah.
So it's that in between.
Right.
And the best way to get into development is to have something original, an original spec that people read and love and see that you can build a world. Because the hardest thing to do is build a world that people want to be in for 30 to 60 minutes. So I think anyone can develop if they can build a world and they show that they've mastered the art of building a world, building characters that are interesting and have perspective and people would want to follow. For me, that's how I got in. I sold my first show as a co-producer. And thank you, Saeed. And did the showrunners training program as a co-producer. Right. Like I had really decided, there weren't going to be shows about Black women unless I wrote them, which is what a lot of me and my sisters did. We always was like, I'm talking about my writer sisters, we was always like, what you writing? Did you finish it? Because you need to hire me. So we would do that. That was our conversation on a regular basis. And so in that, it became, once you sell one, once you have sold two, then people start to come to you with IP and go, can you develop this? And eventually, you get to the point where I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't develop for free anymore. So, I try not to do bake-offs. Bake-offs is when it's like 5 people doing a bunch of work to see if you could do some shit for free. Yep. No. So you try to, sometimes it's unavoidable because it's like a project you really want to do and you're like, how many people are they talking to? Because to these guys who mentioned and Hills mentioned, you have to do so much work just to even get into the meeting. I told my friend's daughter, who is a junior in college, who for some reason is like, I want to be just like you. I'm like, girl, no, you don't. But she was like, oh, you're probably home, or you're getting off of work and wrapping up. And I told her, I said, hey, I'm a writer. I have homework every day. Like, you never not have something to do. Even if you're not writing for your show, you're writing for yourself, or you're writing for the next project, which is why it's purgatory. You should always be writing and developing new things. That's why you have to really love it, which is why I told her, I said, don't get in it to meet celebrities or to feel like you're going to make a lot of money.
You're going to make no money.
I do pretty good, but
ultimately not.
It's the ebb and flow, right? Yeah. You'll make a lot and you'll make nothing, and then it starts to, it's no longer the day of yesteryear where they had houses all over the world because they was on these 24 a season and getting residuals. Like, that day is over.
Gone.
One of them streamers broke it. I won't say which one. But I work for them now. But it is, a thing that of the past. Now you just want to be a working writer and feel like you can take care of yourself and your family, or just not live under a bridge. So you're always developing. And the best way to develop, read a lot of books, watch a lot of movies or TV, get ideas from everywhere, and, try not to fall into the IP of what they're bringing you. Sometimes you can get your own IP. I've procured my own IP several times. And you think, oh, somebody already got that. they probably went for it, but that don't mean they got it. And sometimes a writer gets something that an agent and a studio can't get just because you're talking to another creator. So that's just something I want to put out there.
Yeah, you know, the development process is never fun, probably even with money, because you're not.
Play Sunshine.
Because you're not, because you're like, because you're trying to get someone to buy it. Like
Yep.
you're doing, it's like you're doing blueprints for an invention that you need to bring. Hopefully, someone's going to give you money to do. I mean, you know, like I just met with two people this week. They were like, "We want you to read these comic books. Can you adapt those?" I was like, "Okay, I'll read them." There's another comic book there's IP that I went to go find. There was a comic book that I loved. It was a graphic novel I loved as a kid, and I was like, someone needs to make this. But it was over at, you know, DC, and I was like, if they're not going to do it, then there's no way for me to do it because it's not going to, you know. But I was like, oh, there's a way to do this. There's got to be a way to do this. There's got to be a way to do this. And I was on this committee during the strike with the brother of James Gunn, and he and I sort of became friendly, and I was like, maybe I can get a meeting. Maybe I could ask him to have him, you know, just set me a meeting with the people over at Gunn's place, and then that's it. You know, and then I dug a little further and found out, oh, that book's not even there anymore. It's gone back to the writer. It's gone back to the writer, the original writer. And then I reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, a bunch of people have tried to do this book before. Obviously, when I was at DC and Warner's, I said, well, here's my take on it. And he was like, okay, let's do this. I'm gonna give you the rights for this for a year for free.
Nice.
And it's just like Tash was saying. It's like they want to hear someone who's passionate about this comic. Now, granted, I had talked about this comic in a podcast I did like 2 years ago for like 2 hours. and so I sent him this, and so he was like, "You really love this book,
Right.
so if you can talk about it for 2 hours, then you know, and so that sold him, you know, because people want your passion." There's another project I was telling these guys about today, and I was like, you know, they're not necessarily buying the idea. They are. It's gonna be fascinating and something that no one's ever seen, but they're also buying you. And they're buying the voice and the perspective that you have. And part of the thing that is interesting about doing development is it helps you hone about, you know, what about you is important and that is unique, because that's going to go back to your superpower, about just in terms of like how you get into a room, but it's also about like what is the right projects for you to do. I mean, you know, like if you think about like how are you as the person to sell something, you gotta have something that's internal, that's your passion to keep you on it, because there's so much of like the no's you're gonna get, or you're waiting, or the frustration, or you get the draft back or the notes back, and you're so like, do they not get any of this? What the hell is wrong with these people? And then you're like, wait a minute, why do I still love it? Why do I love it? And that'll let me like cut through what they're saying. And it's always trying to figure out like they're saying this not to fuck up the thing, but there's something that's not working. And it's just, I think the one thing that you always have to worry about with development is you have to think about if they didn't get something or there's notes for something, it's not really them, it's just you, because you have to sell them on the idea, and you got to communicate whatever it is. And if it's not communicating right, if they're confused, then whose fault is that? To a degree, it's like, oh, because you didn't push this correctly, you know. And then the trick is always looking at it going, if they didn't like this scene here on page 40, it's usually because something on page 12 didn't work right. So you got to kind of like, again, the math and like back it up. So, I mean, it's fun to do development because you come up with something new, and you're doing the like the world building. But anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, I kind of like fell into development fast.
Tell them how you got your overall.
I ended up, it was crazy because I worked on Blind Spotting, then I worked on Flatbush, then I wrote an episode of Nickelodeon, I rewrote a Jamie Foxx Christmas movie, and all in the same year.
Yep.
And I had a comedy sample, that was strong and ready, and I had a drama sample that was strong and ready. And I met like 2 people at Sony, and my name started buzzing over there, but I had all of those things, like, you know what I'm saying? And so they ended up giving me a deal, and I was like, boom, you're developing now. And so luckily I had mentors that kind of shepherded me through the process. But the interesting thing is like, the funny thing is, it's actually more development opportunities than staffing, for me at least right now, because all these companies have things they want to, it's like they got planes on the tarmac that are lined up since COVID.
Yep.
And they need somebody that could fly a 747, you know what I'm saying, and land it.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And so it is interesting because there's way more development opportunities. You know, that, like you said, it's hard to sell things, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, you got to try to get paid because a lot of the development that you do that's outside of a deal is free. So you better love it. But I do like development though. And I think one thing I realized is just being on set at, I was recently on the set of Snowfall and the new one that's coming, the spinoff, yeah. And I was just looking around just at how many brown people was hired. And it made me think like, okay, if you don't create this show, right? If John Singleton didn't create this show, then these jobs wouldn't exist, from the catering to the grips to the actors. And so it really makes you, like, the whole development thing really is really, really important. Because if you don't create these things, then we won't get hired, unfortunately. You know what I'm saying?
You better say that again.
Exactly. Oh, dropped your car. Sorry. So be thinking, I'm about to open this up to the audience out there. But, so I want to just say this one thing. Chris was getting into this. And Saeed, you don't make a lot of money in development. But there's positives and there's negatives to development. Let me tell you a couple things. Depending on the company, they will sometimes give you an if-come deal. We hate the if-come deal. But let me tell you where the good side of the if-come deal is. The if-come deal is this. They bring you on to write said project, to develop it into a series or a movie, and then they give you this agreement that's like a couple pages long. It explains what you're going to be making, what your, how much money you're going to make, your credit, all these things. And if the show gets picked up, the bump you're getting, everything is in there, if the right company. I've had a couple of them. And you get stuck. You're like, oh my God, it's with this company? This has got to go, right? And then you spend 2 years doing exactly what they're talking about, back and forth, notes, back and forth. And it's even worse because I started going through it right before COVID. So one of the companies I was working for was a big one. And I'd show up at their office, and then we'd meet at their big conference table, and all these executives would come in, and they're all making great money. I see the Ferraris outside, and and I'm like, where my money at? They're like, it's coming if you sell it, if it comes, right? So I got stuck in that, and that happens a lot. But back to what Saeed said, I learned a ton, right? Now, Saeed, you came out of being on staff to going right into the overall to developing with these big companies immediately with Sony. So where are you now when you go in a room? You're probably dangerous, right? That's how I feel, right? But there's one little twist that happens. You and I have talked about this before, Tash. So this could happen for anybody in here right now. You could meet a producer. They could decide they're going to work with you and you are developing a show for them right now. Here's the problem. I don't even know if I want to tell this part. It's kind of dangerous. It's dangerous. Like everybody's like,
It's on camera.
oh yeah, we on camera. Yeah. But just check it out. Just know that this can happen for you anytime. My suggestion is you need to go through it. You need to learn what it's like. You will grow. You may get stuck in the whole development hell, depending on the company, but you will learn a ton. Here's the other thing I learned, just a sidebar. You guys are we're all at this event right now. Say you're developing a project for some big producer. Somebody like, oh, what are you working on? Oh, I'm developing this show for such and such. They don't know you ain't making no money, right? So you use it as a stamp. You use it as something to push you to something else. So when you're talking to another person, when you get a general, when you get a meeting, they know you're in the room with somebody right now. So it becomes a part of your stamp that you use. So that's what I wanted to say. I'd like to open this up. If anybody has any questions for these amazing, talented people up here, don't be shy. Y'all heard it. Anybody? My man in the back? I'm going to have to bring you to the mic. I apologize, guys.
You gotta come.
Yeah, won't you just come here?
All
Just
right,
come.
I'll right.
You wanted to be on camera.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself. What's your name?
My name is Jordan.
What do you do?
I'm a writer-director.
All right.
So I mostly work in short films and features.
Okay.
And one of the things that I loved when you were talking about, Saeed, about getting exposed on Twitter by just sharing pages, you know, half the battle is writing the script when you're breaking in, and the other half is getting it seen by the right people. So do anybody have any advice about how to actually get your scripts seen or your spec scripts seen by the right people, just so that that can actually kind of break you in and take you to the next level?
I'm gonna start. I know you was talking to Saeed, but I'm next to you. But my first big break that I shared was winning competitions. So I think they're valuable.
Yep.
You should enter competitions. One, they give you really good deadlines, right? You go find the ones you want to enter.
They give you confidence.
And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna write these by these dates, and I'm gonna enter them. Even if you don't win them and you get to the semifinals, agents, managers, executives, they look at the lists. Yep. So I think you should always be sharing with networking across so other people get to read your stuff. Every assistant, you should ask them to read you because they trying to be an executive. So always ask them and what they doing. Reading anyway. Because he was in a meeting, he was like, I didn't read you, but I bet you an assistant read. So every assistant, get them to read, competitions, and also, you know, all of the the consultants and they all are very helpful as well. I subscribe to all of that.
No, go ahead. I'll go.
Oh man.
Say a couple.
I mean, look, you know, you like do what I did. I made a film, and then people really responded to it. And then people was like, they always ask you, so
What else you got?
yeah, what else you got? Or is there a feature to this short? You know, and I mean, like that just happened to me. I was just shooting a short film last fall, and the guy who at the property, he was really excited. He saw me do one scene, and he was like, I want to put money in the feature for this. And I was like, okay. And then I left, and I was like, I don't have the feature. I wasn't even. This was like for another project, but I was like, I gotta write that feature now, you know. And so I'm writing it now because I just finished like mixing that short, so people can see it, and they're gonna ask me, what are you working on, or is it next? And I'm like, oh yeah, here's the feature. So it's like, I think you're sort of in a better position with shorts and stuff because nobody wants to read, and also no one has the attention span to read. But they will watch a short because it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, 15 minutes, and they're kind of engaged differently. And if it's written well, then they can see like how you write. Yeah.
Before you, let me just say this. I think it's okay. I'll project. Here's the thing that's important to know is most producers would rather watch your 10-minute short than to read your 60-page pilot or your 120, 110-page feature film, so especially if it's in a genre they love. A lot of people don't know I love horror, but when they do and they send it to me, I watch it immediately just because I love it. Don't be looking at me crazy, Tash. I see that. So just remember that. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Saeed. I'm sorry.
Nah, I use the social networks a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I recently posted, I got a comedy I wrote on my own called The Last Romantic in L.A. And it's a pilot, and I posted it on Instagram, and the exec from Hulu reached out to me, Onyx reached out to me and was like, hey, I need to read that. Yep. Funny thing is, I sent it 2 weeks prior, but it just was sitting in the email. You know what I'm saying? And so, but all that being said is I constantly, I sent it again. I didn't say I already sent it. I sent it again. I was like, shit, put that shit top of mind. Exactly. But no, and people like, I don't know, you have to just advertise, you know what I'm saying? And I just put up the cover and I put up the log line. The log line has to be good. Yep. Like you have to be prepared, because without a good log line, they ain't reading nothing. So it's like that log line gotta be like killer. And I would say, yeah, promote, put up some of the pages. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you never know who's gonna be watching.
Like leak. Sometimes I just leak a funny ass scene.
Yep.
Yeah, man, listen. Man, I'm trying to get on. I ain't worried about somebody biting something. You know what I'm saying? So you can't. Put it out.
Right. Yeah, you should never be. I mean, you can't be afraid to show your stuff, because if you're really a good creative, you have a lot more. So, but
nobody can write your voice.
And nobody can write your voice. But I'll tell you something interesting you said about the log line and the importance of the power of the log line. There's a really, really good documentary on Apple called Number One on the Call Sheet.
Oh yeah,
right. And
Reggie
did this. Now, there's a really interesting moment with Daniel Kaluuya, and he said to his agent, "I don't want to read the script. If there's offer at all, tell me the synopsis as if I'm gonna go to the movie for it. And if I like the way it's being told to me, either by the agent or the writer, whoever it is, then I'll read it." Because he wants to be like, I'm gonna be an audience. I want the audience to know, because at a certain point before he reads the script, he's the audience. And so all the stuff you're doing with the log line is, this is why you want to read this. This is why you want to read me. It's like the marketing aspect of it, you know, and the log line has got to be like important. It's like, it's the most important thing to get you read.
Yep.
And I'm going to add the kids. I was born in the 1900s, so. The kids are doing portfolios, which are really great, using whatever platform you want to use. Like, I know Canva because 1900s. Yeah. But that's another way to do it, and that is where you have your little vignettes in there. You can have links to videos. You can have those log lines. You can have like a pictorial and then a great log line, and people are like drawn in because now we're seeing everything so quickly, and I think it's just your imagination as to how you get it out there. And trust me, once you get it out there, they will come.
Yep.
Amazing. Well, thank you all
thank you
so
much.
I really appreciate it. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Do you mind coming up so we can see you on the screen? Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Tanai Seabrook, and I am a producer. I do mostly documentaries. Okay. And I want to know, is there any value in a sizzle?
Oh,
and I have other questions, but I'll leave it there.
I do scissors all the time. Like Chris, you've done a couple of scissors. I mean, here's the thing. You got to prove the concept, right? So here's a perfect example, but there's a rule to it. I think we've talked about this before, Colin. There's rules to making your sizzle. The sizzle to me should not only be like, oh, here's the cool scene of my movie that really gets a sense of like, this is about a little girl who wants to do this thing. It should be the scene that introduces that, but could also be its own little standalone short that you could also put in the festivals. So my movie Mermaid, that's what we did. We made this cute little sizzle that is also this little 10-minute short. It killed at the film festivals. Years later, we made the film, and it just premiered 2 weeks ago at CineQuest, you know what I mean? And we're getting hit left and right for distributors, you know what I mean? But that sizzle was very specific. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think sizzles, to what he said, it just needs to be a story of its own. It should be able to stand alone, so it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. You could do a sizzle for anything.
Yep.
You know, you could do a sizzle for a documentary, reality show, micro drama, whatever. A sizzle is just basically, this is the concept, quickly, it should get my attention, but I should feel like it's complete. I shouldn't feel like something's still lacking, because then the person is thinking about what's lacking versus what's there.
I don't know what you want me to say about
Awesome,
sizzles.
awesome.
I mean, sure.
How do you direct them? What do you about that? What about that?
What do you mean? How do I direct them?
How do you direct your sizzles?
I mean, you direct it. I mean, so
He like getting put on the spot.
what do you think about this? Okay, so you want to put together something that is going to be like that's going to be unique visually, I think, and you have to sort of, to me, think about what that's going to be from, like, the lookbook stage, like early on, so that like everyone sort of knows what you're trying to do, so that you can like wow people. I mean, I think the best sizzle proof of concept that I've seen is for Whiplash.
Oh yeah.
Like that's probably the
Perfect.
best one.
Yeah.
Because like that told the movie. In like a single scene, they happen to get what's his name, J.K. Simmons to be in.
You know what the dynamics are.
The dynamics going to be.
Exactly.
It's all this, and it's like I think what Tasha's saying is important too. Is like Tash is saying is that it has to be like a complete story. I mean, the film I just did. I was watching an interview with Francis Coppola for when he was doing this thing with Megadoc. Not Megadoc, but Megaopolis. And he was saying to everyone, he was like, don't do proof of concept. Just do a one-act play that you can like really kill. And if you think about it, a one-act play does the beginning, middle, and end. And can you do it in like 5 or 6 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever it is, and say everything that it is, you know, and then go about and direct it. If you can get someone named, that helps. That helps.
All right, we got time for one more question. Anybody? Oh, my man in bed. How you doing? Come on over, introduce yourself.
Hello.
How you doing? Hey, how are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, we just met a week ago. My name is Don Barak. I'm a writer-director.
A little closer, a little closer.
Is it?
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Don Barak, writer-director. I just wanted to know, when you work in this field for so many years, and it's pretty intense, and we're also at an age that we're oversaturated with content, how do you keep your ideas fresh? You don't get burnt out, and you don't feel like you're repeating yourself, and how do you manage to cope with that, and also to feel the passion for the project, or maybe not, and just deal with it?
Right.
So I think one of the ways to remain like excited is to have more than one project.
Yep.
Sometimes you have to walk away from a project to be reinvigorated. So you should have a couple of projects at once. Another thing I often advise younger writers is to have a mission statement like a company does, because you are a company, you are a brand. Come up with the mission statement. Then go back to that mission statement. And if your project doesn't do the thing that you've spent all this time coming up with, who you stand for, what you want to do, maybe you shouldn't do it, because you know that mission statement is what excites you and makes you want to create. And that's what I do. So it kind of works most of the time.
I will co-sign everything that's been said here. I also, for me, there's always something new happening in the world that I'm like, oh shit, I need to like talk about that. The film I just did, it's about terrorism, right? Because that's like big right now.
Yeah, it's current.
Like we're worried about that. We're totally worried about that.
That's big right
But I was like, I hope it's not big for us, but it is big. Yeah, that was. But I said to myself, God, that's like a tough thing. But I was like, I'm gonna put this in the cloak of a crime film, So now people can like understand it and they'll like, get it. But what it's really about when you watch it, you go, oh, you're talking about what's going on. And that's what keeps me new ideas. That there's always something new happening. I feel the responsibility of the artist is to like look at the world around us and say, this is fucked up. Let's talk about it, but not talk about it because, you know, we might get
on the nose. No.
So,
I'm constantly watching stuff. I think one thing, like when I meet with a lot of producers or execs, they're always shocked by how much shit I'm watching that's out right now. Because they say like a lot of writers don't watch shit. So I try.
So many people are like, "Oh, you write for TV? Well, I don't really watch TV.
Exactly.
How you going?"
Yeah. So
stupid.
I try to at least watch the pilot. Like I'm gonna watch Love Story.
Yeah.
Just because people been talking about that, and
Right.
you know, okay, that's what I'm saying. See, I haven't, but I'm on it though tonight.
Yeah.
But no, like watching stuff. Sometimes reading books. Just something that's not a script. Also reading once. I read. I read audiobook like a motherfucker. That count, right?
That's me. That don't count.
That don't count? I'm trying to read 24 books this year. That don't count? Okay. But then another thing is I try to read a script a week. Yeah.
After.
Then you're stuck possibly and you're emulating the same thing.
Nah, cause like it's all cause like I actually that's when I got to get out the house.
Yep.
Let me see this. There is no new ideas.
That's true.
All of the things have been done. It hasn't been done
Your
by
way.
you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So even if you were a twin or a triplet, you still have your own perspective. So that means you're going to see it through your lens, and you're going to see it through 2026 lens, and then it becomes brand new. But if you think about it, even every invention is built off of something that's already done.
Yep.
So you are the new thing. You are what's going to make it, you know, fresh and exciting. And if you come at it from that perspective, you'll never think, oh, this has already been done. Because it hasn't been done by. And one.
Oh, you got one?
I just say one thing. The whole thing about
This is the podcast. That's what we've done now.
I think the whole thing about getting stuck on a project is
That's what I was going to
it's the whole thing about with writer's block. I realized that writer's block is because you don't know enough about what you're writing about.
Yeah.
If you have,
You got to go down that rabbit hole.
Because if you know it,
Yeah.
you just go. It's all gonna come out. But when you don't know it, when you don't know the character, when you don't know the emotion of that scene you want to do, if you don't know what the conflict's gonna be, if you don't know the turn at that moment in the third act, whatever it is, that's gonna get you stuck.
I disagree.
Also, while they disagree, I also feel like it's okay to put something down. So like sometimes like I'll be like, all right, man, I'm stuck on this one. Instead of just trying to force it, I'll just like put it down, rest, go get something else, maybe not write for a week. Cause sometimes you gotta like sit in boredom and just like let it chill and like let your brain reset and then go for walks and shit. And then you might be on a walk and be like, I figured out how to kill him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, like it's okay to put it down and work on multiple things. You know what I'm saying?
I was just kidding, Chris. I don't disagree. I do. But also, I touch some grass, go out, get some, you know, vitamin D, get some sun, get some, go on a date. Don't do that in LA. But but also, someone else told me this, their theory on writer's block. And this is for every writer in here. First of all, you don't need anyone to tell you you're a writer. You're a writer if you say you're a writer, which means you can write. The other thing is writer's block doesn't really exist.
Nope. No.
It doesn't. Writer's block is about making a decision. And if you don't want to make the decision, you feel blocked. But think about it like running the hurdles. Has anyone ever seen someone run the hurdles? We all have, right?
say.
You see them run up, and then they they leap off, right? And sometimes that back foot, we like, oh, yeah, they made it.
Yep.
There are times they won't make it, especially when you first start running it. But what happens? They go and they run it again, and they know how to clear that hurdle. So writer's block is about making the decision knowing you might not clear the hurdle this time, but every writer knows the art of writing is what?
Rewriting.
This is my class.
That's some game, right? That's a game. I'm going to add this last little piece, and we're going to end it right here. Thank you, man. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate it. So think about this. Think about this. I always say this. There's several elements for writers. So if you're having your writer's block, this is what I tell everybody. You don't have to be writing every day. But if you can't write today, you can read. If you can't read, you can read. You messing up my shit, Carlton. So if you can't read, you can watch. And if you can't watch, what did my man say he doing? Listening to podcasts or listen to a book, you can listen. So you don't have to go, tell him. So you don't have to go a whole week of not writing because you're writing every day by doing one of the elements, right? So remember that. No. Gone. It's a little bad stuff. All right. So first of all, I want to thank everybody. Let's give a round of applause for my guests up here. Tash Gray, Christopher Derrick, Saeed Crumpler, and I'm Hilliard Guess. Thank you again, my man Armand over here. Thank you guys for tuning into the Screenwriters Rant Room podcast, where we keep it real, we keep it opinionated, we keep it what, everybody? Game all day. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Armand.